Hello everyone, we're going to preview live logging and saving to the file. So this is going to be a brief overview of how to use our TorqTune application and to show you how it connects to a box and all that stuff. So right now we can see that all these buttons are grayed out, and at the very bottom right hand side we see that it's not connected and it shows that it's red. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in the USB like so. You're going to see that it connects automatically. If it doesn't connect automatically, just hit the reconnect button. So you hit that, it reconnects. You can tell it's connected because it says connected firmware version to the CM5 unit, and that the icon is green. So green means good. You have all your buttons enabled right now, and the very first thing you should do when you connect is to read. So what this is going to do is it's going to grab all the settings from your unit. It's going to populate all these fields with all the settings that matter to your unit, and it's going to populate all these tables. All these tables will be filled out with all the individual values that you've already programmed. So every time you open up this application, make sure you read first before doing anything else. So as you saw, each one of these tabs contains the tables that are going to control the unit. We have a debug log that's going to show you some logging messages in case you get some errors, and then the live logging tab, which we're going to cover later today, or later in this video. So the first thing to note here is the tables, when they start with a blank unit, the output's going to be off. So to enable editing of these things, make sure you turn these outputs on. You're going to set them to whatever values you need. In this case, I have them all on and set to the duty table. That'll allow you to edit the values. So once you edit the values on the basic settings page, make sure you fill out all these and make sure you fill out your tables. We'll cover advanced table editing in a different video. Once you have those, you can write them to the unit. To write them, you can hit write, and there you go. It wrote everything to the unit. It's all live. As soon as you write, it should be good to go. So what we're going to do now is do live updates. So live updates are going to continually grab data from the unit, and they're going to show them in this graph at the bottom here. So enable live updates, all you have to do is just click the button. So when it's red, it's not live updating. When it's green, it is. And it's pretty obvious. You can see all these values are updating on the fly. They're going to show you all the parameters that you can view and change from the unit. You have a couple different options here, but the most practical is the physical options here. So they show you RPM and PSI. So here you see a live chart of the values. Now the unit I'm connected to, it has a kind of manual input, so it has these little knobs that I can change all the things. So it's not connected to a engine by any means, but I can change all the values by messing with the knobs. So you can see here I'm changing the map sensor values, and as I do that, the map, which is going to be this guy, the 18.5 psi here, I can change it up or down, and it shows you corresponding to the what is this? It's going to be the blue line in this graph is going to be the one I'm changing, and these green line and the pink line are going to change accordingly due to my tables. So when I take a look at the tables, we can see there's some crosshairs, and these correspond to your boost pressure, the current boost pressure that's reading, and the engine RPM. So as I change my boost pressure, it's going to go up and down. As I change my RPM, it's going to go up and down. And we can see here, this is the actual duty value of the main output, and that's going to change depending on what my table is and what the current map and RPM are. So the crosshairs are going. We've got our live logging going. We can stop this at any time. You can start it again. Every time you start it, it's going to refresh. It's going to remove all the data that's in there and give you a clean slate. So let's just add some things here so I can show you. So we added some squiggly lines. We can stop it. And the really cool thing about this is you can go back in time to view past saved data. So as I move, you see a bunch of numbers at the bottom here. These guys are going to be your timestamps. These are just the time at which this happened. So this guy is a couple seconds ago. And as we move through, you can see the values here are updating because we're recalling this data as we move through the graph. And as we click, our cursor, our little crosshairs will update as well. So as we move to different values, the crosshairs will move around correspondingly. So let's turn this guy on again. So one thing to note here is we can change any of these values at any time, and they're not going to take place, they're not going to take effect until we write it. So let's write it out, and you saw that the duty value was impacted. So the duty value is going to be the interpolation between the neighboring values on both sides and the current value that's in there. So as we play around with this, you can see that it's going to get lower because I just set the value to 0, and its neighboring values are quite high. So that kind of shows you what the live updating does. So one neat thing about it is, let's put a whole bunch of data in here. So we can write a whole bunch of stuff. We can wait for this stuff to scroll off, but as soon as it scrolls off the screen, I can't see it anymore. So what we can do is we can stop the live updating. And if you hover over a lot of the elements in the GUI, they'll display little help messages in the bottom left here. So in this one, we can click to recall, but we can also right-click to scroll. So as we right-click, we can scroll through the data, and we can go look at past data that we had from a while ago. So you can see the actual timestamp as we scroll through the data. So that's a handy way of recalling data. Okay, so the next thing to show is log into file. So we have this big log to file button. Obviously, when we click this, it's going to start logging to a file. So what this does is it saves every little portion of data that we receive to a file in a comma separated value type format, which you can open in Excel. When you save to file, you notice here it displays a nice highlighted range within the chart to show you exactly where the data is being saved and where it's not. Anything within this blue boundary, which you can turn on and off with this blue button here, will be saved to the file. Anything outside of it is not being saved. So when I close this GUI and reopen it, if I am not saving the data on the outside of this boundary, it's not going to be saved anywhere. So you're going to lose that data. So make sure when you're doing something important that you need to log, make sure that you're logging to file. So you always have that as a reference. So another important thing is when I'm logging all this data, whether it's to a file or not, as I move these values around, it's not just saving what I have shown in this chart. It's also saving the entire every little data element it gets. So every one of these little fields is going to be saving constantly. So if I turn off these guys, you can see I'm moving these around right now. And when I turn them back on, you can see that I've moved them around and that they're automatically saved. They're just always there. So the data is always being recorded regardless of what you have visible. So do not feel like you have to have everything visible just to save it. It's all being saved in the background. So if I stop logging to file, as soon as I click that, everything's going to stop. And the data is going to be saved to this file right here. So I can open this guy. Let's open it here. Whoop. So we have a lot of these files here. So every time you press the live updates or the log to file button, it's going to make a new file with a new timestamp. So this timestamp is going to be the current date as well as the time added there. So you don't have to worry about overwriting old files. You always have them. You always be able to go back. The nice thing about this is we can actually open the files for later viewing. So if I open the latest one I made here, it'll look the same, of course, because I just had it open. And we can scroll through the whole thing here. So we can see data that I had here, but you notice I don't have any data from before I started logging the file, so that's lost. So make sure, again, if you're doing anything important, to log to file, because otherwise you'll lose it. Okay, so another cool thing we can do is when we do live updates and we're saving to file, let's say we were doing some setup. So we want to start live updates, we're making sure the engine's running, you know, things are going as we want them to. But we don't want to quite log yet, so you want to save an important event in the future. We can use a timer-based logging. So we can set a the number of seconds we want to log in the future. And all you have to do is just click the check mark. And as soon as you do that, it's going to populate this little timer thing here on the left-hand side there. So as soon as we hit the log to file button, it's going to start that timer. And as soon as the timer expires, it's going to start the logging. And you can see it in the chart. As soon as it starts, it's going to show that blue region of recorded data. So you can see right now it's started. So it's recording everything I'm doing, but it's going to be at some time in the future. So this is handy if you need to, say, set up your computer in your passenger seat. You need to do like some kind of dyno testing or something. You don't have to record the whole event. You can just record when you actually start running your car. So another important thing, just to show you, breaks in the log. So when I'm updating, or when I'm we can turn this off here. So I'm recording the file right now. When I write a bunch of stuff to the file, so say I make some changes to this, and I want to, let's make this back up to 75. So I want to write out all my data. So I want to write every table. While I'm doing that, I can't do live logging and the writes at the same time. So when I hit write all, it's going to write everything to the file, and you notice that there was a break there. So there's actually going to be a tiny break in the data, and the same as when I read. It's going to be a bit of a break in the data, and you can see that in the live logging here. So just remember, if you're doing any reads or writes, there is going to be breaks in the data, so don't do those while you're recording important events. So the only other thing to show is that when you hit this hide options, it's going to show the graph in big detail. And the nice thing about this is you can see really detailed changes on these graphs, and it also helps if you're showing more than one plot at the same time. You can display all of them, change all the little settings, and you can see them all kind of in higher detail. And yeah, that's it. If you have any more questions about logging or how to use it appropriately for your testing, feel free to view some of the links at the bottom. We have some nice help on our website, and of course you can always contact us if you need anything or if you have any suggestions for improvements to our GUI. Thanks.